Sure, everybody. Welcome to another edition of our podcast, Bastards of Knowledge. I think this is episode number 24, if I'm correct. If I'm wrong, hey, well, that means we're doing pretty awesome. Thank you for listening to us. As always, we appreciate you listening in. As always, we start our podcast with each of us sharing a bit of knowledge that we've learned. And Tane, over to you. What have you learned over the last few weeks that we've had a bit of a break?
Yeah, probably two things that stand out for me. The first is you touched on it a few weeks ago about how sometimes things don't go to plan. I've been planning a few things ready for the exec at the start of this year, and then with the traffic light system changing, it means we have to adapt and overcome some challenges or barriers that have been put in our way. But I think in doing so, it's going to allow us to grow as an exec and actually see that we can face these challenges and actually come out better for it. So I think although it's a challenge and although it's a barrier, we just have to face it as something we have to overcome if we want to achieve the things we want to. And the other thing is helping out with Science Academy last week. It just helped put my university journey back into perspective. You know, seeing these students who are anxious about year 13, who are worried about just moving down here, or seeing that this is just a big accomplishment coming down here, it really puts my journey back into perspective and makes me appreciate the journey I'm on and the journey I'm allowed to be on because I've been given opportunities to be here. So just really thankful that I'm able to, work with those students and actually see, hey, my journey is really cool and I've gone a long way so far.
And what great reflections there. Two things there about having to change, because all best laid plans, they change, and also just being reminded of your journey and the opportunities you've had, because it's quite easy to forget about those opportunities as we move forward. What's my learning's been? Well, I guess it's linked to yours about COVID, and COVID and planning. We had all these cool plans to do some pretty cool things, and along comes the red light system, and overnight things change, and it's quite easy to get depressed and get angry with these things, but actually there's no point getting angry. This is the way of the world. You've just got to find a way to work around it. And hating on people and blaming other people for what's going on in the world gets you nowhere. So my big learning is it is what is happening. You just got to find the positives and go from there. Awesome. So as always, we always have lots of learnings in our podcast, and we always try to introduce and bring a guest on that is that we think will share and enlighten us both, and you, the listener, as well. Today's guest is no different. As always, I'm pretty lucky. Most of the guests I have gotten to know from previous roles. And today I think we're pretty privileged to have someone that I've gotten to know really well over the last few years, and has actually become a friend of mine, which is I think it's very privileged, because like Tane is also a friend of mine, and that doesn't happen very often because young people come along, I meet them, and off they go and do the cool things. Our guest today has got an amazing story. He is an amazing human being, and we're going to talk about that today. And how do I introduce this young man here? So his name is Albert, but I know him as Alby. And Alby, welcome to our show today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, my friend. Those introductions never get easier,
Yeah.
They never get easier to hear, and I assume they never get easier to do. So thanks for having me, fellas.
No worries, Alby. Thank you for coming on. So before we start, Alby, just to put some context, who is Alby right now? What are you doing right now in your life?
I am now a second-year grad at the Ministry for Primary Industries here in Wellington. I am half Samoan, half Kiwi. Born and bred in Wellington. I studied down in Dunedin from 2017 through to 2020, meeting a multitude of people along the way, both good and bad. And now I'm I'd say in that second stage of getting back into life back at home, and that after the whole honeymoon stage of being home and missing Dunedin, it's just calming down, taking each day as it comes, and understanding that uni was just such a transitional period, and now it's back into the big wide world.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so crazy. People don't forget to realize that university is a small part of your life, and then when you go back home, wherever your home is, you have to retransition into this world, because university isn't. I don't like to use the word real world and not real, because it is the real world in that point in time in your life, and now you're in a different point in your life, and you have to change up just a little bit. And that's something that it's really hard to explain until you actually go through that. But it's awesome. You're a second year grad, which is awesome. But the journey always starts somewhere. Let's talk about where the journey started. So Alby, we met you in year 13. So do you want to speak about your year 13 year and how that was for you as a young person, given your family situation, where you studied and that aspiration that you had?
Yeah, 100%. So I remember, oh gosh, I even just personally, I always think about this transitional time in my life. Back in 2016, when I first met you, Prajesh, and I studied at St. Patrick's College Silverstream, one of the two St. Pat's in Wellington. I would say it was such a privileged education. Coming from such an unprivileged background, I understand that my background and where I studied, they just two opposite worlds. It was like I was going into one life when I go to school and into a different life when I get home.
Do you want to tell us about your background? So give us some perspective as to.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So I am an only child of a Samoan mother and a Kiwi father. My mum came to New Zealand from Samoa in 1986. In August 1986, met my dad when they were both working at Unilevers, and they had me in June 1998. What else? My mum was 36 when I was born, and my dad was 63. So that is a huge part of my identity, of that whole understanding that age gap.
Yeah.
And not only that, but also understanding that minority also with a New Zealand born, and then the age gap was also a thing that I never really understood. And it's such a complex part of my identity that to this day, I'm gonna be honest, I haven't really fully unpacked, but it's something that it's just there. So
it would have been interesting for you at school, like you said before. You came from a background that is not mainstream, so you had your identity as a half Samoan, half Kiwi, but also you had the age difference. And when you'd go to a school setting, how would that influence you? Because all your peers have a normal type situation. How did that make you feel?
Because I was an only child, also a lot of that's another thing to unpack. But I understood that my lifestyle and my background and my family dynamic was completely different to others. Some people think of it as a negative thing, but I think that's me. That's just who I am unapologetically. It's as hard as life has been navigating that kind of journey, I wouldn't have had it any other way.
Yeah, totally.
But you kind of have your kids that come from your typical 2 to 4 children, suburban lifestyle with 2 parents, understanding that a lot of my friend group would either have the one parent or the parents separated. It's that kind of whole, there's so many different dynamics you'd have in one schoolyard, and even navigating that along with a lot of my peers, you understand how that molds someone's identity and how they interact and conform within kind of social areas and social boundaries.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So you're in a St. Pat's schoolyard in a year 13. You have, like you said before, you have school life, you have home life, and you're coming to the end of this amazing time at school, which is a privilege. Now, obviously, the next step for you is what's next, and there would be some pressure from your family. Well, not pressure, expectation, I guess, from family, expectation from society around you, an expectation from yourself. And what were those? Were they conflicting, or were they all in the same sort of direction?
Expectation came from every single direction possible. There was expectation from my school, expectation I had on myself, expectation from my family, and then my parents in particular.
It
was actually a very interesting thing. I never spoke about my future with my dad. Never really did. I think maybe subconsciously in the back of his mind, he understood that my future in a normal setting wouldn't have much, he wouldn't be involved in much of it. And that was correct, because he did pass in my year 12. And again, that built so much of that kind of year 13 struggle in 2016, heading off into what I thought I wanted to do next.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was always an expectation of my family that I would head off into further learning.
Yeah.
Same with my school. And it's that one word again, and we've spoken about this word. It's my favorite word in this vocabulary. You know what it is, Prajesh. You know,
Yeah.
what's that word?
You remind us of the word.
Potential.
Yeah.
Potential.
100%.
You know, like it's all
100%.
about, he has so much potential, but he has so much potential, so he has to do it.
Yeah.
And I struggled with that expectation. I struggled with the idea that I'm so comfortable within the setting of just, you know, youthful adolescence that I don't know what I want to do. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I came to you in January 2017, when I was just about to go to university and I didn't know what I wanted to study. And from there, it kind of blossomed into walking that road as I was paving it.
Yeah, that's right. And let's step back before you start paving this amazing road here. In January 17, why did you come and see me? Why did our paths cross?
In 2017, I came to see you because I knew that I quote unquote shit the bed and I didn't do too well in my year 13, and I finished my UE with UE in 2 subjects and my third one with 10 credits. So I was 4 credits off UE.
Yeah.
And from there, I thought I had no options, and staying in Wellington was not an option for me. I just know that I wouldn't be where I am today if I'd stayed in Wellington.
Yeah.
Even if I'd gone to Vic or Massey, it just wasn't me. And I came to you. I remember I had called you the day before the results came out, or the morning the results came out before they did come out, telling you that I know that I didn't pass.
Yeah.
And I need your help. And I was freaking out, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important for listeners to remember that because you know, there comes a point in our lives when we know these dates are coming up. It doesn't matter whether it's an exam result coming out or whether it's a birthday or a job interview or whatever. And inherently, you know that actually I'm not okay here. I'm not okay. Something's not going to work out right. I mean, that happens when we're not prepared. And you actually reached out because you didn't wait for it. You didn't wait and go, oh, okay, I've laid my bed. I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to take life. And you reached out and you're like, all right, cool. What do we do? And we sorted that out. Cool. We got that all sorted. And also for more context, let's talk about your financial situation. So yes, we got your university entrance, but finances also was something that was something that you had to navigate as well.
Yeah. So I had a single mother that was working 3 jobs to put me through that school, and that school would turn the other side when it came to bills after time. They supported me so much, and I'm forever indebted to some of those people in those places. And I received a scholarship to Otago, the Māori and bus speaker entrance scholarship, that $10,000. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have gone down. And you helped me keep that.
Yeah. I think a lot of people were on your side. We go back to the word potential, and I think I'm going to go back to your school. I think your school needs to take a lot of credit here because they did push for you quite a bit, and we had lots of conversations, and they could also see that if you stayed in Wellington, your life pathway would have gone a whole different way, and you know that as well. With the group you would have kept, that would have changed, and your school really pushed for you. So that's all cool. You landed at university. What is that like for you? So yeah, you're leaving your family again. Your mom, who you must be really close to, and you say goodbye to her. She says goodbye to you. You land in this place here in the bottom of the South Island. What is that like for you on day one? Essentially, I guess, if you can remember that.
I remember that trip into Wellington Airport, that ride in that Sunday afternoon, and it was like not a cloud in the sky. And my mum was crying that time because she knew that she was sending me down to Dunedin with $30 in my pocket.
Yep.
And it was such a poignant moment because it was a mix of my mum didn't feel shame, but just felt like she told me her heart broke because she knew that she was sitting me down with that nothing. And she was expecting me to turn that nothing into something. And I got down to Dunedin and I made that $30 stretch, and $20 of that paid for my shuttle. So I had $10 for that first week. I don't know how I had a week pass somehow, but I had $10 for that first week, and I went down there, and I remember just imagining on the plane, I was like, wow, this is the next step of the rest of my life. And then I got off the plane, I slept on the plane like a baby. And then I got off the plane and I was like, did I land at Dunedin? Because all I saw was cows and farming area. And I was like, whoa, Mamona, what is this? And got on the shuttle. I didn't know how to book a shuttle. I just jumped on a shuttle, and then they nearly kicked me out. And then begged with the fella. And then I remember that trip in the shuttle, and that came down past St. Clair, and it was that kind of coming down around the hill, and you kind of see the whole shoreline. And I was like, wow, this is my their next stage.
Yeah.
And I could throw this opportunity away, or I can make something with it, and I can give it my all. And I found my fair share to be somewhere in between.
Yeah.
I would be lying if I said that I had an amazing year. I failed 2 papers, and the other 4 papers that I did was a 50, 51, 52, and a 52. I struggled.
Yeah.
And this is something that if there was one lesson that I would ask the listeners to come out of this podcast from me, is going down to study in Dunedin. You think that it's all about study, but it is not. Study is only 10, 20% of the whole thing. Learning to exist as an adult, where your mistakes are no longer mistakes, but can get you into trouble, and can hurt other people, and can hurt yourself. That was what I had to learn. And
I think that's an important learning, and I think it doesn't matter which university you go to when you're leaving home. When you're leaving home as a 18-year-old, 17-year-old, that there are consequences for your actions in whatever way, either positive or negative. And I think that's what we all forget about. It's very easy to say, I'm going to go and study, blah, 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 blah. But actually, like you said, I think it's very important. You have to exist in this other world. And and as you went through that there, you passed, you failed. That's part of life, really. You had your experience. And through that, you started finding yourself. You started finding out who you were, because now you were not defined by your school or your family here. You were starting to find who you are. And let's talk about the impact of mental well-being. That became an important. You became really, really a strong advocate for that. What is the motivation for that there?
My own mental health.
Yep. Do you feel enough to share about your mental health?
100%. It's fine.
Awesome,
It
cool.
was I remember going down to Dunedin, and I thought that I was on top of the world. I was making friends, I was having fun, I was drinking, I was doing this, I was learning how to be an adult and how to be an individual, because so much of my life, even though I'm an only child, consisted within that Samoan family dynamic of the whole herd mentality, which is still a huge part of my life. But I've always thought that Dunedin is a place that can take so much out of you if you let it. And for me, that is something that happened. And whether or not there was starting to understand that, oh, well, I've drunk 4 weekends in a row. Or, oh, well, I've missed every tutorial for this paper. Just a neglect for those little things, whether I was going to the beach, going to the park, or just watching that NBA game that I really wanted to watch. It really started to kind of put things and start to increase that stress level. And after a while, I started to really struggle with my work ethic. And not just that, but just my living my day-to-day life because I was just so consumed in having fun, and not just that, but like also having fun, but drowning out the fact that I missed Wellington so much. The place I was running away from, I missed so much because it gave me routine, it gave me discipline. So it was like in a perfect world, I would have Dunedin, but with Wellington's routine and discipline. And I think that was such a big thing because I had no family down there. I knew no one down there before I went down. So there was no one to keep me grounded. There was no one to keep me in check. And as much as the Horde did their best, it was like once you go into that flatting lifestyle, if you don't have that previous relationship with your home, you just go into flatting and you never hear from them again.
Yeah.
And that really impacted on my mental health. And I lost my nana in the end of first year after losing my dad and my grandparents and my parents and my everything. They're the reason I exist and all. And understanding that I did not know how to handle my grief. And I went down there and I was still struggling with it. And as a young Pacifica male, feelings are not something you talk about. But I needed to understand that if I didn't talk about it, I wouldn't just lose myself. I could put myself in harm's way and I could do something really, really stupid. And from there, I just understood that it wasn't just me that was in this. It was a lot of other people. And it just started going from just a casual chat with someone and then kind of picking up and perceiving things like, oh, well, okay, this is how they're feeling. And it just turned into being there for a lot of people, but understanding that helping other people doesn't mean that I'm helping myself.
Yeah.
Helping other people may have just been a superhero complex, so I didn't have to address what I needed to address. And that was something that I learned, again, along the way. So the whole mental health journey that I had in Dunedin was multi-layered, very complex, but the community that I found in Dunedin because of it are my family. They helped me survive. They helped me graduate. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for them.
Yeah. And let's talk about that, because I think it's important to remember what you mentioned, that it wasn't you only. You know, you were going through your mental struggles, and what you mentioned before is you found that a lot of people were going through the same thing, manifest in different ways and have different reasons. And you know, you started to become a champion for this. And do you want to talk about Silverline and what that was all about for you, and how that became a pretty big thing for you? And I also want you to talk, if you could reflect back and tell us about how you found your voice, because what our listeners need to know is that Alby produced some of the most amazing short stories that we've ever seen at the university. So I don't know if the two are linked. We'll talk about one or the other, and let's talk about you finding your voice as a storyteller for your, you know, the short stories.
Being storytellers is interwoven within our identity as Pacifica. Straight off the bat, you know, you have I look at some of the orators that you see around New Zealand, young speakers, and then you look at the fact that our entire Whasamo is built on formal speech, and also the understanding that that voice within the community, within the family, that dynamic is everything. I have always been somewhat of a public speaker. My mum forced me to do the gospel and do readings at church since I was about 9-10 years old. So
Yes.
I've never been shy on that. But again, to this day, I still get anxiety waiting for that to happen. It's not like, again, never seen myself as the finished product. And I think none of us ever can.
100%.
Because if we see ourselves as the finished product, there's always that person that Alby in 2 years down the line that you're always attaining to be. That's what I'm wanting. But I found my voice in different means. I studied film in Dunedin, and I think it was just my relationship with film since I was young. My household was it was a household full of love, but it was also a household, it was quite a lonely household. Because my mum, I love her to bits. She's the queen of my heart. She would work ungodly hours. It would be just dad and I at home, and he was quite a recluse. He had a stroke in 2008, and he kind of became very introverted. And because I was the only child, I found no means to kind of express my voice in my household. And then I would just go down to the video store and immerse myself in different stories, different people's lives on film.
Yep.
And it's that whole narrative of, maybe it was the narrative of me just wanting to have a different life that I was trying to search that in film, and that's what it was. And it was about 2018, 2019 when I just started feeling creatively muted. And from there, one of my best friends in this world, Arthur Hon, I hit him up and I was like, hey, did you want to do like some sort of little short film thing? And I had no script. I just told him this is what I want to do. And we wrote it, we filmed it, we edited it, and I did narration over it in 24 hours. And we put it out. And that film got a nice little bit of traction, and Sian saw it from the Social Impact Studio, who they run Silverline and Unicrew. And she saw, and Arthur let me know that she wanted to meet. And from there, she is the most, words do not do this woman justice. She is, I know she'll be listening to this soon enough, and she'll hate that I'm saying this, but like, she's a champion of so many young people, and the fact that she understands that Silverline gives so much to so many people, but the fact that she brings some of the most quality people in and within our community is just a testament to her leadership and just the person she is. Because we all gravitate to that good energy, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And it was that. So video content that kind of gave me an idea, and that's where I've always seen my future being, creating short films and just visual content of substance that can impact someone's life. And yeah, that's kind of how that started. And because I was able to intertwine that within the work that we're doing in the mental space, it was bread and butter. It was something that could get people involved with our community, and also gave me a means to express myself because I was feeling muted for the longest time.
Yeah. And I'm not kidding when I say that some of the products that you produced were just amazing in 24 hours, and a lot of people still speak about them. And the other thing is that you started creating Alby was your own community around who you were, because your identity started changing as well. And I know that you went back to the college you first lived at, and you became a person that people could talk to and relate to. How did that feel? How did that feel for you to actually be given an opportunity to go back? Because I know there was, again, an opportunity that somebody out there saw and said, we want you to come back. And let's talk about that, because you finished up, you said your second year was tough, you were flooding. Again, you could have gone down the wrong way. What happened? Well, I'm wrong, sorry, a different pathway. And then what happened? What happened out of the blue for you?
Yeah, so especially that second and third year in my flat, I kind of had a very big reliance on some vices that I should never have relied on. And that kind of sent me down the wrong path for a while. And the hall that I was in first year, they kind of asked if I kind of threw me a bit of a lifeline and just asked, hey, if I wanted to come back in, just kind of get back into the community as somewhat of a kind of an older student that could, because I was always kind of not exactly mentoring, but just kind of being like that casual, not alumni, but almost like a talk kind of Tina relationship of just kind of giving him that shoulder, because once Dunedin's had this culture of just like, once you're an older student and you see a fresher, if it ain't eggs in their face, it's, pouting abuse at them. And I've never understood that. I've only ever wanted to just kind of be like, I've been in the exact same spot. It's around that whole passing the light and carrying it on. But yeah, I had the opportunity to go back to that hall in 2020 in my final year. And again, it was great. It was great getting to know another bunch of first year students that were in the exact same boat as I was, just with a little bit of spice, a little bit of spice of a nice little COVID lockdown, and study from home and, online learning, exams,
Yeah, just get spiced
everything
it up.
online.
Exactly. We love some spices in our life. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a digital grad,
Yeah.
and then how did I graduate? Oh, what was it? Bomb threat. So grad was cancelled. Nice, awesome. Just how we love it. But yeah, that final year it had its ups and downs. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
There are times when going back as a final year student, it was just like, just like, oh, I'm at the end of my journey, and like,
Different, right? Two different
yeah.
parts of you.
And those kids gave me as much support as I gave them.
Yeah, both
Because I
places.
lost my papa in my final year, and again, grief, I do not know how to handle it. So yeah, that final year was the biggest lesson that I've ever had in my life, and that's saying something considering some of the events that have happened in my life.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think I'm stronger for it.
Yeah. And I'm going to bring Tana in here because you mentioned something that's really interesting, and I hope this has changed down with time where the older students are now actually becoming more responsible. But Tana, this is what drives you as well, because you want to pass that passion, not the passion, the learning that you've had to people that are coming in for the first time. And why do you not do that? Why are you both doing this? Like, what's the point? Tana, go and tell us.
For me, the biggest push is I know how much of an impact my opportunities at the university have been and how impactful they've been on myself. So when I came down for hands-on Otago, that was my first ever flight. That was my longest time away from home. But I think without that, I would have stayed introverted and I wouldn't have pushed the boundaries to see what opportunities I was able to achieve, because I would have just stuck with my friend group and just stayed in my shell. And I think I want to pass on to students that it doesn't matter whether you come from a top school or whether you come from a school that's seen as small, we're not going to get anywhere, because at the end of the day, everybody has an opportunity. And sometimes, as Alby said, sometimes it's just about somebody seeing that potential in yourself. And that's what I like to see in students, because it's just that one person and that can change their whole entire journey, that can change their life. So for me, it's about passing that to future students and just supporting them through their journey. It's easy for us to get them to the university and say, okay, cool, you're here, we don't have to worry about you anymore, that was our job. But the value comes when you actually check in and say, how's your first year been, how are you feeling as you're going through your journey? And it doesn't have to be a huge conversation, but just a simple email or a simple message about, hey, how's university life treating you? It really means a lot to see that people are still following your journey, even if they haven't been there 24/7, so just showing that there are people that want to see you succeed and want to see your journey is what I think is really important for our young students coming through.
And I guess that's not just students in life. When you go to your workplace as well, it'd be great if somebody just has a chat to you and says, hey, let's are you okay? Are you all good? Yeah, we've lost Alby there for a second.
No, just rearranging.
That's all good. Alby, I just want to ask you a question now, as our time is running out a little bit here. Let's build the picture here. You didn't get UE, we got you to university, you go through your journey there. Now you mentioned earlier that here comes 2020, your final year, you're about to graduate, bomb threat, can't graduate, then you finally graduate. What emotions do you go through, and what emotions does your mum go through as this happens? Because in the background, while this is happening, your mum is here in Wellington, and there's things happening in the family where people are passing away, and you're not there with her. And now you finish up. What is the emotional, I guess, feeling for you both as you both complete this journey together and separately though?
I will explain this in a bit of an anecdote, and
Awesome,
that
perfect.
is in the way my mum would answer my calls.
Yep.
When it was first year, second year, third year, it was like, oh, go to class, go to get that sorted, do this, do that, and that's how she would end the calls, like always pushing me.
Yeah.
And then when it got to my final year, and she saw the work that was happening in Silverland, and understanding that that's never been a topic I've ever discussed with my family.
Yep.
That conversation and those answers then turn to, son, look after yourself. Are you okay? Are you keeping yourself well? What are you doing to look after yourself? And it was that little shift
Massive
that
shift.
made
Yeah.
me. That's the shift that understood that their expectation is out of her mind.
Yeah.
She just wants me to come home.
Yeah.
She knows that in the height of all this uncertainty, she just wanted me home. And this situation we live in now, because mum still is working 14, 15-hour days in this very building I'm in. She cleans in the building I work in. And I come home, and sometimes we have that really nice talk, and she tells me about how it was when I left, because she never wanted me to leave.
Yeah.
And if my dad was still alive when I finished year 13, I would never have left.
Yeah.
Because I knew that more likely than not, he would not have been here when I graduated.
Yeah.
And she didn't want me to leave. And my family didn't want me to leave because they wanted me to conform within this family
The
dynamic.
narrative. Yep.
And she let me go. And she told me that first year, and this is something she's never opened up to me about. She told me that first year when I left was the most loneliest time of her life. And that's how I knew that opening up about my struggles and the work I did with Silverline worked.
Yeah.
Because if just one conversation could change in a household, then I did my job.
Yeah.
Silverline did its job.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And she told me that she was so lonely and she missed me so much. And when I wouldn't call for a day, she would be heartbroken and she would worry about me all the time. And she didn't want to annoy me, so she would just wait for my call. But because of me in the new setting with this newfound freedom, 2 days, 3 days, and now I'm 23 years old, not with the 18-year-old adolescence and arrogance. I look back now and I understand that, like, although it was necessary to go through those times, and I understand that, to be honest, if I look back in my first year, Alby, who was that person? Like, I wasn't a very nice person to a lot of people. And there was this whole narrative now that I'm like this, like this really nice, nurturing person. But in first year, I wasn't a very nice person. And it took a whole lot of kind of soul searching and understanding that I needed to strip away these toxic masculine tendencies that I have of like just wanting to be alpha dog or wanting to just be that guy.
Yeah.
And just understanding this, we're in this high of uncertainty with people that come in and out of our lives at various stages of our lives. And you never know when will be the first and last time you'll talk to someone, or when will be the time that you just see someone for the last time. And understanding that you have such a small window to impact someone's life.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to make sure you can control what that impact is, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, I think that's important, because I think when you go through that, you realize your limits of your mortality, that, everyone's going to die at some point in it. And, I like, there's the saying that you only die once. No, you only live once, but actually you live every single day. You only die once, right? And it's when you're living, you've got to make those changes. And I'm going to go back, because I want to tell listeners that when I met Alby in year 13, going to university, and then I saw him at university, I was like, what has happened? Because within the 2 weeks, he had already changed his hair color. and he was a whole, and I was like, who is this person here, And so I can see what happened when Alby went into this place here. You change, and that's okay, because this is what happens, right? But you've come back, and you've gone, right, cool, hey, and you're reflecting on that, which is important. And but also in between all this, you're also working. Like, think about the school. Let's talk about the school holidays. When you come back to Wellington, you were still working, but you were working in a space where you were helping people. So
And still
for
students too.
exactly. So
Yep.
for our listeners out there, from who are not in New Zealand, we have a scheme here that is called StudyLink, which is great. It helps young people have the opportunity to actually go to university, which is fantastic, but it is really hard to navigate. And Alby, you did that over the summer holidays, right? You were that person that would help people navigate that lovely system, which is giving back. Yeah, and then based on that, how did you? So you did that there, and now you're role at MPI. Tell us how that happened. Because you said you're a film grad, you did your film grad, and now you're an MPI. Whoa, what's going on here?
For a while, I felt like something was missing in my life, and working at Ministry of Social Development and within StudyLink was that thing that helped me just help people. So what I would do is I would go and I would come home early. I would come home in like September, work till March, do my. This is the life hack. This was picking papers with no exams and doing all your assignments early. I didn't say you needed to do good in those assignments, just do your assignments early. And Producer's got that really awkward smile right now because that's like red flags in his head. Yep. And
cut him.
And then I wonder why I why I didn't pass those 2 papers in first year. So that gave me an opportunity to help my own community and understand. I would get a multitude of calls for different things, and I understood in that moment that every single decision I'd make when I was at work impacted someone's life directly.
Yeah.
If I make a mistake and I don't see that their parents signed this and they were waiting for student allowance for those 2 weeks, couldn't pay rent, got evicted, I'm impacting someone's life. People going through those mental health issues because they have nowhere to live, nowhere to stay, they have no options left. I'm impacting someone's life. And that autonomy and that ability to impact someone's life, and now it instilled this kind of need to serve.
I guess a social responsibility. It wasn't just an application form, but it was a person on the other end, right?
Yeah. It was a family that wanted their first graduate in their family. It was kids that wanted to escape a household that wasn't good for them. It was kids that had no other options left and needed to get out of their friend group and out of the life they had at home.
Yeah.
And to some people that I worked with, it was just 8 to 4.
Yeah.
It was money. But to me, it was just so much more. And even again, like I would go home after a day where I couldn't help someone and I would be like, I don't know how to turn this off. Maybe it was just like how I am.
Yeah.
And I come back now and I'm now here at MPI helping people that are not within my community, but very much are people whose lives are impacted with one small decision that I make. And again, it's that service, it's that idea that if you aren't doing something that can help someone, we need to understand why are we doing it. And I think Pradesh, you were quite a big role model for me for that for a very long time. And I see those pictures on your Instagram, and I see there's one, I see, oh wow, he's helped 6 people that week. Oh wow, look at this guy. And I'm gonna be honest, I am still struggling here as a grad.
Yep.
And I'm wondering where my role lies as a film student within the primary industries.
Yep.
But it's by far understanding that I still, no matter how far gone I'm past that uni lifestyle and that university life, I'm still not the final product.
100%. I think it's important to remember you're always learning. You're always learning about yourself. And even where you're right now, you are going to find how you are going to use your talents, I mean, I'm still trying to find my talents, I think people think you finish up university, this is it, you're a finished product, off you go. That is an incorrect assumption to make. We're always trying to refine and learn about ourselves. But I think it all depends on why you're doing that. Like you said before, if your why is to help other people, that is going to motivate you. But if your why is an external source, and that's okay, there's nothing wrong. Everyone thrives in different things. You just got to find what makes you thrive and go that way there. But also, it doesn't mean that if you're in a place that doesn't make you thrive, that you can't learn from that place there and go, right, cool, actually, I'm in this place here, but that's cool. Let me find how I can thrive. Alby, we've been talking for almost an hour, so we're going to wrap it up pretty soon. And normally when we wrap, I mean, your story is really fascinating. I'm sure we can keep talking forever and ever and ever because there's more you could tell us about your story. But to our listeners as well, Alby has been featured on quite a few TVNZ articles. And Alby, if you're happy, we'll put those in the show notes so people can actually access them and see what you've done and tell your story, which I think is important to see what the other side of your story is, which we haven't gone into today because you've done it already many times. But Alby, as we end our podcast, our podcast is called Bastards of Knowledge, and we like to leave our listeners with some nugget of knowledge that you would like to share, no matter what the age group is of this listener, something that you've learned in your life that you think could be transferable to anyone, no matter how old or how young or what stage of their life they're in. Any words that you'd like to share with us, Alby?
In the words of one of the people that impacted me in my time in Dunedin, relevant to students and to grads and to anyone in the workforce.
Yeah.
You don't have exams at 12 o'clock in the morning, so you should not be studying at 12 o'clock in the morning. Maybe that's me understanding that sometimes I need to switch off and leave work within work hours, understanding that you need your sleep if you're a student, or you need that time to unwind. I'd never found that time in Dunedin, unless it was playing games with my friends. But you need time to understand and unpack that. And I never understood that laying in my bed for half an hour before I got up every day was me mentally psyching myself up for the day ahead. Because sometimes you need that. So yeah.
Can I just clarify that though? You mean midnight, not midday, right?
Oh no, midnight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I was like, wait a minute, it's midnight. Everybody, midnight. Yeah.
Yes.
We want you to go to class, or we want you to be at work at midday.
See, he's asking me that because I said I never went to class, so he may have thought that was midday.
Exactly.
Oh,
I had to double check.
That's shocking behavior.
Awesome, brilliant. Alby, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I think I know I've learned a lot. Tane, do you want to say anything as well?
No, thank you for being on our podcast. It's really good to hear your journey and see that you're going strong through after you've graduated, but also showing that even when you do graduate, you don't have to have everything perfect. And I think often, a lot of us think that we do have to be perfect when we come out as graduates, but that's not the case.
There's no such thing as perfect, guys. No such thing as perfect. Yeah.
Thank you, my friend.
Awesome. Right, cool. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for listening to our podcast. As always, we appreciate you. We think this podcast wouldn't be where it is without you. Feel free to share with your community, with your peers. And yeah, we look forward to having you on for the next podcast. Bye, everybody.